Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to All Access AM. I am Billy Embody. Thanks for joining us on this Monday. Hope you guys had a great weekend. We are off and running on today's show after a busy Sunday in the coaching carousel world. We'll get to all that later on with Pete Nakos of On3 Sports. What it means for some of the ACC schools is they'll have to contend with yet another big-time head coaching opening as LSU fires Brian Kelly Sunday afternoon, evening. Pretty much sealed his fate with that loss to Texas A&M. But look, we're here to break down week 9 of ACC football and a couple overtime games, a couple of really good games for the top of the league, and then kind of some of those teams in the college in the ACC race falling this weekend as well. So some things to talk about and break down what it means as the ACC championship race continues on as we get closer to getting back to Charlotte that first weekend of December. So we break all that down in this edition of All Access AM. Pete Nakos will be with us at 7:30. Thanks for everybody who watches us live and hits that subscribe button to our YouTube channel. Please, if you do one thing, hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. It really helps us out trying to grow that channel and really allow ACC fans to kind of take that over, share your thoughts on the community there, things like that. So please hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Sorry, I was looking at our Twitter account as well and just kind of brain farted there. But let's jump right into week 9 here with that first matchup. Cal at Virginia Tech. And we had kind of circled this one. This was a really interesting matchup with Cal going all the way across the country. We had seen that not work out at times. Obviously, they were able to, take care of business earlier this season against Boston College, but it was a Virginia Tech team that had kind of been playing with more fire under Philip Montgomery, the interim head coach, and they come away with a 42-34 overtime win. Good on them. That was how you do it. Obviously, it took double overtime to do it. Kyron Drones throwing that touchdown pass for the win and then running it in for the 2-point conversion to give them the 42-34 win over Cal Friday night. It was a good standalone game for the ACC that night after having a doubleheader last week. Lane Stadium was popping off. I always get just so jacked up watching the entrance at Lane Stadium with Enter Sandman. And I tweeted out on Friday night, I said, SMU could have given up 9 more years of TV revenue to have that game moved up to that first year in the ACC for SMU. It might have been worth it, but instead, a couple more years of waiting for SMU to go out there. Cal gets to go out there this year, and they fall. And true freshman quarterback Jaron Kiwa Sagapatelli threw 4 straight incompletions on that next drive to end it. So really difficult loss for Cal there. They fall to 5-3, 2-2 in ACC play. That eliminates them pretty much from the ACC championship. And now Virginia Tech also 2-2 in ACC play, sitting there at 3-5 overall. I think Philip Montgomery is a guy who has been at some tough places like Tulsa and did a really good job there for a long time, in my opinion, with what the resources they had. And it's not surprising to me to see him kind of get this thing going a little bit. It wasn't the prettiest ball games. I mean, it was 27. Looks like it was 27 all. It was 27 all at the end of regulation. And then they had a little bit of a scoring fest there in overtime, the first 2 overtimes before Virginia Tech's defense shut down the Cal offense. But you got to give kudos to Philip Montgomery, what he was able to do to get that win. And now this sets up where Virginia Tech, might have an opportunity to maybe make some noise down the stretch. Maybe Philip Montgomery can get that job full time. I wouldn't take it off the plate completely, especially with the coaching carousel and what it looks like now. But their remaining schedule: Louisville at home this weekend, 2:00 on the CW, then at Florida State, then Miami, then Virginia. So really, really difficult slate. If he could get one of those wins, maybe that means he could get the full-time job. But again, good work there, Philip Montgomery and that team, to get that one across the finish line and get that win. So before we go any further, I do want to remind you guys about our presenting sponsor of the show, Security National Bank. Appreciate their support of us here at All Access AM. Whether it's your personal banking, your business banking, or wealth management, Security National Bank is there for you. They're a family-run business. They do it the right way. They're big on the community, and they're looking to build your future with a foundation that can support your family, can support your business. And so they'll really, really take care of you guys. They've got locations in Iowa, Nebraska, and Texas, and they're always looking to expand, of course, and broaden their customer base. And they can do that for you. I mean, that's the new world of banking that we live in as well. So go to securitynational.bank for more information on what they can do for you and learn about all their different ways that they can help you reach your financial goals, whether it be personally or in business. All right, Security National Bank, shout out them for helping us out and supporting us at All Access AM. Again, give us a follow, a subscribe, a like on the YouTube channel. We appreciate you guys tuning in with us on Twitter as well. We're continuing to grow our Twitter handle, All Access AM, at All Access AM. Rest of week 9 for the ACC was quite the slate. Not too much drama outside of UVA. We'll get to that in just a second. But the big drama of the weekend, I would say, was Wake Forest getting the win over SMU. That is a huge blow to SMU. Wake Forest wins 13-12 at home on homecoming. I was there for it. And SMU's offense failed to get off the bus. On the flip side, the defense did. But Wake Forest defensively was able to, make SMU really, really ineffective offensively, and was unable to really get the ball moving in any consistent fashion. And so Wake Forest, on a walk-off 50-yard field goal, was able to get the win. Huge win for Jake Dickert. Deacons are now 2-2 in ACC play, 5-2 overall. SMU drops to 5-3, 3-1 in ACC play. They're very much not out of the ACC championship game picture by any means. If they win out, they could very well find themselves in Charlotte, especially with how the tiebreakers work. But this is a game that SMU had sandwiched between the game at Clemson and the game against Miami this weekend, which, instead of it being now a high-profile, either 2:30 or 6 o'clock type of a game on an ESPN or ABC, SMU gets stuck at 11 a.m. on their homecoming next weekend. And, this is going to come off the way it comes off, but you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And that's really what happened with SMU's offense on Saturday. Is they did not have a really good plan. They did not have any adjustments for what Wake Forest did. And Wake Forest adjusted to whatever those adjustments were. And that's what ultimately ended up sinking SMU ship. They really could not get a first down when they needed it. This is the second game this year that SMU did not get that first down when it needed to, and it could have really run out the clock or killed more clock and ended the game. In this case, it would have ended the game. Instead, SMU punts it back. Wake Forest gets the ball with 12 seconds left. A good defensive play call is wasted by poor secondary play. There's two defenders right there to bat a pass down potentially. But Deshaun Purdy was able to hit the 28-yard completion and kind of get them into field goal range, and 25-yard pass to Cameron Johnson and get them into field goal range. And Connor Calvert, shout out to him for hitting it. It was career long, I believe, for him as well. And it literally just went over the crossbar and hit the pad right between the goalposts. So Wake, huge win for that program. Obviously SMU went to the college football playoff. There's a lot of attention on SMU last year as well. So for Wake to get that, that's big for what Jake Dickert and that program is doing. But not to take away from what Wake's defense did, SMU was just uncompetitive offensively. And I think that is really concerning when you look at this team going into this weekend's game against Miami, which we'll talk about later. But when you have that type of an effort from, I think, an offense that is filled with veteran players, Kevin Jennings, Jordan Hudson, Romello Brinson, RJ Maryland, Matthew Hibner, who got hurt. You had some injuries up front, and you had some injuries at this position or that position. But man, when you have that type of a a game as a whole, everybody's got to wear it and understand that that can't be acceptable. And so it's a really bad feeling in SMU's mouth going into next weekend against Miami, what could have been a really huge game. It still is a big game, but now it's a pair of 3-1 teams in the ACC facing off in Dallas. So Wake Forest, on the other hand, they're 1 win away from bowl eligibility in year one of the Jake Dickert era. They get to go at Florida State this weekend, 6:30 on the ACC network. I mean, could be right there. Then they play Virginia, and then they play North Carolina, and then Delaware and Duke. So a pretty reasonable schedule here the rest of the way. I mean, they could win 10 games in year one of the Jake Dickert era. Their schedule isn't bad by any means. I mean, this is a team that should have beaten Georgia Tech, but did lose to NC State earlier this year. They're clearly getting better as the year goes on, but they're certainly a product a little bit of their schedule in a sense. But SMU just did not show up off the bus, and that is a really, really rough loss for SMU there to take with everything it had in front of them. So quite the game over there in Winston-Salem. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how SMU picks itself up off the bus after off the grass after that one, because they kind of got ran over by a bus in a sense, offensively at least. But the defense was great for SMU. Shut down really Damon Claiborne for the most part and made Deshaun Purdy uncomfortable. 5 Wake Forest turnovers, 0 points. All bad offensively for SMU, but an encouraging effort as they get to take on Miami this weekend, who beat up Stanford in the second half, scoring 42 unanswered points as a whole, en route to a 42-7 win over Stanford. Talked about this game last week. Miami ends up covering here, first of all, which if I had this game up in the corner of the screen watching it on the little quad box I had going that evening, and you're sitting there and you're like, oh man, this one is getting interesting. At halftime, it was 7-7, and Miami woke up and pulled away. And Mark Fletcher Jr. had a big part of that. 3 touchdown runs for him, over 100 yards on the ground. Carson Beck went back to being that game manager, 21 of 28 for a touchdown. And then the Miami defense made Ben Gulbranson, who was coming off injury, uncomfortable all night, had 2 interceptions, 9 of 21. But this is the performance as a whole you probably expected from a points and a scoreboard perspective. Miami just had to wake up a little bit. It happens. I mean, that was the thing watching the SMU game. That was the thing watching, if you watch Georgia Tech take on Syracuse, and eventually they woke up in the second quarter. But sometimes it's hard to be as focused as you need to be right off the bat and to execute the way you need to execute right off the bat. But these teams are doing it, and they're kind of waking up. SMU never woke up out of its tailspin offensively, and that's probably one of the more disappointing pieces of it if you're an SMU fan listening in today. But you look at Miami, again, 42-7 win over Stanford. We had Stanford covering. The style of play that they play, I just felt like was going to be the right mix for that game to maybe shorten it, especially considering Mark Fletcher had over 100 yards on the ground. You look back at it now and you're kind of like, oh man, that it was there for him. 30-point spread, but unable to cover on that one. So tough deal for those of us out there who we're working on trying to pick the spread in that one. It was a big number for Miami, but they pull away in the second half and were able to hit it. And Georgia Tech hit it as well with their spread, winning 41-16 over Syracuse. Syracuse took a 3-0 lead. It was tied 3-3 at the end of the first quarter, and then Georgia Tech rolled the rest of the way. Haynes King, Brent Key was talking on the ACC huddle after the game this past weekend and said he should be in New York. And I don't disagree with him. Longview, Texas, got your back right here down the road from us, a couple hours away. And Haynes has just persevered throughout so much through his career. He's really just stepped up now for this Georgia Tech team. And I mean, he's now a face of that program. So, congrats to him. 5 touchdowns on the day for that Georgia Tech team. And Syracuse, their offensive woes. This game was trending the right way for Syracuse to kind of maybe hang around and see if you could figure it out. But instead, Georgia Tech did what you probably expected Georgia Tech to do, which is win the football game. Again, this was another one where I thought the line could have worked a little bit better for Syracuse and kind of just the style of game. I think it was maybe it was 17 points. I have to go back and look, but I just felt like that was kind of quite the number, the way Syracuse would get up for this game, and they did get up for it. They just couldn't sustain it. So 41-16, Georgia Tech rolls. Not too much else to say there. I mean, they look like the class of the ACC right now, as the number one team as far as being unbeaten as a whole, 8-0 now, and they keep things rolling there. They do face they get NC State on the road this weekend, 6:30 p.m. Central on ESPN2. So follow that one for good test. NC State at least has a good roster, but they are in quite a way right now. After losing big to Pitt on the road this weekend. We'll talk about that in just a second, maybe what it means for potential coaching carousel over there. The game that made this weekend, for SMU fans that were watching and saying, okay, you need a Virginia, you need a Georgia Tech to slip up. Well, if you're watching the Virginia North Carolina game, you're thinking, oh wow, this is getting interesting. This could happen. Tied. It wasn't tied. Yeah, it was tied up 10-all at halftime, and that score held the entire second half, which is kind of ugly as a whole. But they go to overtime, UVA scores, and then North Carolina gets the ball, and what do? They score, but they go for two, and they don't get it. So I believe for the second straight game, North Carolina comes up just short of pulling off a win in ACC play. Instead, now 0-3 as a whole. Bill Belichick, I think he made the right call. Tony Elliott said after the game he was surprised by it. Look, when you're in the way in shape that you are, if you're North Carolina, you have not had the level of consistency this year by any means, and you're getting close to maybe breaking through. Go for it. I mean, what do you have to lose? Next week, you come off of this game and you face Stanford after a bye. So you're going into a bye. You're like, all right, we want to, they play Syracuse on the road this weekend. Then they play Stanford. You want to go into it with a little bit of a high, and instead they fall. Again in another close one. I think North Carolina is getting close. I think on the road at Syracuse next week is probably the game that, when you look at the rest of their schedule with Wake Forest, Duke, and then NC State, I think that's the one that they've got to have. Stanford is, I don't see them going and beating Stanford. I mean, the only thing is Stanford has to travel to Chapel Hill, which could make it difficult. But this North Carolina team is really, really close. Virginia stays unbeaten in ACC play. They're 4-0 now, 7-1 in overall. This was a game that I definitely had circled on the flip side of all of the not bad beats, but bad picks on some of these bigger spreads. Had this one circled as North Carolina covering. They do that. It's a Virginia team that I don't want to call them pretenders by any means, but they've now played with fire in so many games this year. And you can have teams that don't play up to expectations, still win and do things like that. But Virginia has really played with fire and really gotten so close to getting burned. And now they avoid it again. And if you're UVA and you're trying to win out and go to the ACC championship, you've gotta get over this. You go on the road at Cal, tough trip. They're going to be pissed coming off of this past week's travel to Virginia Tech and how that went. That's a 2:45 p.m. Central Time game, so no weird scheduling there where it's 11 a.m. or things like that, or super late, what have you. And then you've got Wake Forest, Duke, and Virginia Tech. So again, with Virginia, your schedule is reasonable, but you have to play better football. That is it's technically four straight games of one possession game football for Virginia. The last two, Washington State, you needed a safety to win, which they got. They forced it. They did their job. And then Louisville, they get the win in overtime. So, of course, Florida State was OT as well. But when you look at where Virginia is at, they're at that point where they need to kind of break through and break out of this, because they are messing around and they're going to lose a football game here if they don't get it together. And UVA is kind of getting a lot of the right bounces, and they're getting a lot of the right things to happen for them. That Washington State game, that game at least goes to overtime if someone doesn't make a silly fair catch and then doesn't return it, and all of those things, you get pinned inside your 5. That is just not something you can do and expect to win, and it costs Washington State. But UVA, on the other hand, just not taking advantage of the opportunities that they have. They're getting wins, and that's all you can ask for. And if they win out, none of this matters. But the way they are playing could very well cost them at some point. So the Hoos, they've got to figure it out. They've got a veteran quarterback, Chandler Morris, who's been through a lot. I would think Tony Elliott, this is maybe their come to Jesus type of moment. Hey, guys, we played really hard. We got to stop when we needed it, but this is not going to ultimately work out for us if we do this. So it'll be really quite the watch there next weekend when they go and face Stanford out there. No, they where are they? I just had it. UVA goes at Cal. So both Stanford and Cal playing in the same window on ACC Network and ESPN2 next week. So interesting stuff there with the two Cali schools hosting at the same time. Boston College continues to be winless in ACC play, and Louisville gets another win, one that I think probably expected a little bit, not a letdown of sorts, but 38-24 win at home. The ACC Huddle crew was there in Louisville as they took down Boston College. Isaac Brown, 205 yards on the day and a touchdown. That's the type of football that they need to be playing. They're continuing to show it. They're continuing to flex their muscle with Isaac Brown being healthy. This is the running back. This is the Isaac Brown that I thought we would see, going into this season. He's just been now dynamic back-to-back games, and had 150 yards in the first half, had a big run on the first play from scrimmage. So this is a Louisville team that is starting to really play with some confidence, and they got over that big win, then a letdown loss kind of trend that they've had throughout the course of their run under Jeff Brom. When they've gotten the big win, when they've gotten the top 10 win, they've fallen back down to earth pretty quickly. So they sit at 6-1 now in overall, 3-1 in the ACC. They need to win out. We all know that, but they get a really nice win over BC to continue this track towards where they're going. Now they go on the road at Virginia Tech, and then they host Cal, Clemson, and then at SMU, and then against Kentucky at home. So go on the road at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's got some confidence. That group's playing a little bit differently. That's a different group of athletes than what Boston College has. I think, week in, week out, you've got to show up. You've got to bring it. On the road, you're going to need Isaac Brown to continue to have a really strong game for you. Miller Moss, 15 of 27, 187 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Not the best game there for him, but he is a game manager. I mean, that's the thing. In my opinion, that's what he's got to be doing. And if he's not, it's going to show up at some point if he's being asked to throw it around 50 times. But when you have really good balance, 31 overall rushes as a team, it's going to help you out a lot. I think 2 were kneel down. So 29, 28 was kind of the split there on run pass run, so to speak. So good balance from Louisville, but Isaac Brown is the straw that stirs that drink for Jeff Brom's offense, and they continue to keep it going there. That was a interesting game, 21-10 at half, and then pretty even in the second half, 7-7 in the third quarter. 10-7 in the fourth quarter. Louisville is, I think, one of these teams that athletically, I've said it, they just have the right group of athletes to do this and make their run and push to Charlotte if they could get a little bit of help. Especially they'll need Virginia to lose. I think they'll need them to lose twice. So they do need a lot of help to get in, but they're playing some really, really good football, and who knows, they deserve a little bit of credit. It stinks that you can't even look ahead to Kentucky though and say, oh man, well it's gonna be a nice feather in the cap, if they can get that win against Kentucky, because Kentucky continues to struggle as a whole. So Louisville gets the win at home with the huddle there. So congrats to them. Let's end with this on the Week 9 ACC recap before we get to Pete Nakos here in just a couple minutes. 53-34. Pittsburgh takes care of business. Mason Heichel, 423 yards, 3 touchdowns. NC State now 1-3 in ACC play, 4-4 overall. But the Pitt Panthers, 6-2 overall, 4-1 in ACC play. They're bowl eligible. And if you would have said that after their first 2 Power 4 games this year, which were losses at West Virginia and to Louisville, even though they were close, they're one possession, I would have called you crazy, just the way things were trending with them. They make the quarterback change, and they've been cooking offensively. I mean, they have not really they've not scored less than 30 points since making the change. They have scored 48, 34, 30, and 53. Pitt, man, they're scary down the stretch. If you're any team that has to face them, you've got to be watching them really, really closely to see how you're going to beat them. You've got to bring your A game. At Stanford this weekend for Pitt, tough game going East Coast to West Coast. Then they play Notre Dame. Man, if you're the Irish, aren't you on upset alert there potentially? Then Georgia Tech, Miami. What a murderer's row to end this regular season for Pitt. But if I'm Pitt, I think they're taking down one of those teams. That would be my kind of futures bet of sorts to see how this one plays out. But Pitt continues to impress with Mason Heichel, a quarterback. The question is now on the flip side of this game, NC State, Dave Doran, 13 years there. Is this it? Do they make a change here? Do they kind of look at what they're doing with Will Wade and this NC State basketball program and investing in it and say, hey, it's been a good run. It's time to make a change and move on from Dave Doran. I could see it. I just wonder if they're motivated to do that. I'll be honest with you. I mean, that's the, do you double down and kind of say, okay, we're going to take one last run at this. We're going to dump a bunch of money into this program and see what happens. And if not, it's time to move on and get a fresh start and maybe do this in a way that I think can maybe you grow into the winning. It's a long build. You find somebody who has done more with less, because there's a belief over there that they have the resources to compete there at NC State and what they've been able to kind of put together as a whole. But if you're the Wolfpack, this is not the world you want to be living in overall. And to be kind of embarrassed by Pitt is a big red flag for the future of this program. It would not shock me at all if they moved on from Dave Doran and moved in another direction. So do want to remind you guys, just quick shout out to our friends at Horn Legend, as Pete Nakos has now entered the studio. Go to hornlegend.com and check out their selection of polos, pullovers, sports shirts, and more. Horn Legend is incredible quality, really, really elite group of brands on the college front there that you can find and shop. So make sure you check out our friends at Horn Legend, who are really hooking it up. We got a great selection of ACC polos, pullovers, and more. You can find your team. Some of the teams are still being brought on board there by Horn Legend, but they are great friends of the show. And when you use code PONY, you get free shipping with our friends at Horn Legend. So shout out to them. And now we get one of the busiest men in the world of college sports and it is Pete Nakos joining us on the show. Pete, thanks so much for the time, man. How are you doing with the world of the coaching carousel right now?
Things are good. It's nonstop. I woke up yesterday, sat at my desk at like 7:30, 8 a.m. Expected LSU to fire offense coordinator Joe Sloan, and I don't know, 13 hours later, 12 hours later, Brian Kelly was fired. So it's been quite the whirlwind 24 hours.
Yeah, we'll lead off with the news of LSU firing Brian Kelly. How does that go from, like you said, waking up kind of thinking, okay, they're going to move on from Joe Sloan. What they put together offensively has not been good all year long. They'll do this. They'll hit the reset button kind of there and go out and find a high priced offensive coordinator and see what they can do. But instead, they make the move away from Brian Kelly, now the second highest buyout in college football history.
Yeah, you look at it, right. So Brian Kelly came in 2021 after Ed Orgeron was fired, and he posted those 2 10-win seasons right in 2022, 23, but then, they've gone 9-4 in 2024, and now it's like 7-6 in like their last 13 SEC games. I think it's clear this wasn't headed in the right direction. Um, but yeah, I mean, the going thought, from speaking with sources yesterday morning was that some major staff changes were coming, but not at the head coaching level. Um, but from my understanding from speaking with sources, there was some sort of a disagreement between Brian Kelly and athletic director Scott Woodward yesterday that really sped up this timeline and kind of led to last night's dismissal.
When you look at this job coming open, that's something that a lot of people probably didn't have pegged before this year. The very trendy pick to get to the SEC championship, go to the college football playoff. They had invested all sorts of money into this football team. Now that they've moved on from Brian Kelly, what does this mean for the coaching carousel? What's the trickle down effect here?
Yeah, listen, I was as high on LSU and Garrett Nussmeier as anyone else. I think this preseason, but then also, by the middle of September, I was hearing rumblings about, what's next for Brian Kelly. Is he going to make it through the year? Things like that. Just because, things are a little underwhelming from the start. I know they beat Clemson, but then it turns out that Clemson's more like a 500 team this year than expected. So, um, it is insane to think about what the last 3 weeks have looked like in college football. You go James Franklin to Billy Napier to now Brian Kelly. And, we sit here today. It's still not even Halloween. It's not even November 1st. And it feels like some other massive ones are going to come open. Just if, some things don't like come together in the next like 5, 6 weeks of the season. So, I don't know what's next. Kentucky, Auburn, like there's definitely a lot of pressure in both those spots. I'd say Baylor's one to watch at this point. With Dave Aranda, I think they're 4-4 now in the season, so there's a lot more movement coming. And man, if we thought like the 21 and 22 cycles were really crazy, like when Nick Saban retired, like it seems like everything in the last 3 weeks is really trying to turn that upside down.
The ACC has Virginia Tech open. Florida State could open. NC State could open. North Carolina could open. Stanford's open, has been open. We always forget about them. How does this impact some of the ACC teams? Do some of these searches or decisions change now that the market is so much more competitive, and not only who maybe those schools hire, but especially if they part ways with a Mike Norvell or a Bill Belichick or a Dave Doran?
Billy, maybe like 5 years ago, I'd say yes. But with the amount of money being spent on football programs these days between, revenue sharing, NIL, coaching buyout, payments, um, there's going to be a lot of pressure from donors at these select universities to make a move. And they're not going to be happy with just like sticking with Mike Norvell when, Miami's having success. Florida's going to go hire a new head coach and try to find some success. Like you look across the board, and while the thinking kind of adds up that, hey, if you sit this out, maybe you'll get a better candidate next cycle because of how busy this cycle will be. There's a lot of boosters and donors and universities who are not going to be patient and just take another year of losing um, to get a better candidate.
Pete Nakos joining us on All Access AM. When you see LSU make a move like this, the coaching salaries all of a sudden, the agents are probably just sitting there being like, happy, birthday, happy Christmas to me, Merry Christmas to me, because this is all good for the agents. Does this escalate the price of doing business as well?
How so?
With bidding wars over potential candidates, and then when you're left at the altar by whatever candidate you don't get, you're going to end up having to pay what you're going to be lined up to pay for, because all these agents talk and try to get
Yeah.
that best deal.
No, I got you. Yeah, I that's definitely probably going to happen. The thing I kind of have my eye on right now is, I think Lane Kiffin might be on track to be the highest paid head coach in college football next season. Between Ole Miss wanting to retain him, Florida and LSU are going to show major interest. I think you're looking at a contract that's probably going to have to make him one of like the top 3 highest paid coaches in the sport.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That's where I was kind of teeing you up. He's in quite the love triangle. I'm sure there's a square there. Somebody else would love to have him, of course, but Florida, LSU being open now, trying to pull him away from Oxford. When you look at some of these programs like Virginia Tech, where they get a big win over Cal at home, Philip Montgomery seems like he should be considered for that job. Have you heard anything on that, and maybe where they're looking? Because they're investing, but do they kind of take a turn in a sense and maybe see what they like about Philip Montgomery and invest in other ways, or are they kind of still big game hunting elsewhere?
Yeah, he's definitely being considered. I'd say that, but there's a lot of interest in Bob Chesney, the James Madison head coach. There's a lot of interest in John Summerall, the Tulane head coach. He's going to be a really hot name with all these SEC jobs. James Franklin's a name that has come up in conversations at Virginia Tech. He's someone else who will get interest from a range of jobs. Him at Florida State could make a lot of sense. If Florida State makes a move on Mike Norvell. So names like that are really popular right now. So I guess we'll see how it all shakes out.
Do you get the sense that Florida State is going to move on from Mike Norvell, or do obviously some things to play out there, but they at least kick the can to the end of the season now?
They did, technically kick the can to the end of the season, but they also have Wake Forest at home this week. And if they lose to Wake Forest at home, I've heard from sources now for the last 10 days that timeline could really get sped up. So that's one thing to watch this week. And then, you know, athletic director Michael Alford announced that they're going to do a comprehensive assessment of the Florida State football program. That typically is not a good sign about where the program's at and what that means for Mike Norvell's job status. Now, yet again, this is a buyout that would be historic, one of the top 3 highest buyouts in college football history. But the other reality of this too is you need money to put a roster together in college football. And from everything I've heard in the last 10 days now, a week, there's some donor fatigue there of constantly not winning games since 2023, and the idea of trying to put dollars together to put a roster together in 2026 seems unlikely.
And with this North Carolina situation, because they've been close the last 2 weeks. They're not in a position, I feel like, that it's about wins and losses. This is all about fit, right? Like kind of at the end of the year. I mean, I know it's been bad, but are they looking at this from the perspective of made this bed that we're now sleeping in with Bill Belichick and probably Jordan Hudson as well, and we've got to try to figure this out with them? Or do you think it's just where both sides could say, what, this has been quite the interesting setup here, it hasn't worked out, we haven't won, let's just move on?
TBD.
Yeah.
I think North Carolina's really come out and played hard the last 3 weeks, which is something that I think people were questioning about Bill Belichick in North Carolina. So I think that's been impressive. I would just tell you that we really are not going to know anything firmly there until the end of the season. So I've been careful I think there's been a lot of interesting reporting in the last 14 to 21 days that maybe hasn't been the most accurate. So, have been trying to just report the facts on this one specifically. And all I would say is just we'll see how it plays out at the end of the year.
Last one, and we'll get you out of here. NC State, gets beat up really badly by Pitt. Shout out to what they're doing up there in Pittsburgh, making the change at quarterback. It's really paid off for them with Mason Heichel. But that type of a game for that type of a program at NC State, getting 50-pieced by a true freshman, is that an inflection point with that program? And maybe you see them moving on there?
Yeah. I don't know if it's the inflection point or not, but I'll just tell you that from speaking with sources, there's a lot of pressure right now around Dave Doran's job and what's going on there at NC State. So we'll see how things shake out. But that's another one I keep an eye on in the weeks to come.
All right, Pete Nakos, thanks so much for joining us, buddy. I know you're busy and have a great weekend. Maybe you'll get a break here for just a day.
Thanks, Billy. I'll talk to you.
All right. There he goes, Pete Nakos of On3 Sports, one of the best, most tied-in reporters out there. So make sure you give him a follow at Pete Nakos _ on X, and check him out. On3.com is where you can find his work. You can find me at ontheponyexpress.com covering SMU. If you're an SMU fan listening, make sure you subscribe with us over there. Hit the subscribe button to that All Access AM YouTube channel, please. We're YouTube at All Access AM. So help us out there, grow that channel. ACC fans, basketball season is approaching. We're going to start getting into some of the preview content. We're going to have some guests. I'm really excited about that. We've got the Field of 68 team at On3. We're really looking forward to kind of tapping into them and kind of working with them as ACC basketball and college basketball season approaches. So we'll start having some kind of crossover. It's that interesting and awesome time of year where it's going to be November. Football season, regular season is going to be rolling. The conference championship race is going to be heating up there. But on the hardwood, basketball is getting underway. And of course, we know you guys want your basketball. So working on a lot of guests and kind of trying to figure out what all that looks like. So comment in the comment section if you'd like to give any feedback on how is best for us. Do you guys just want us to do kind of coaches, players, see what we can get from some of the ACC schools out there? Or do you want us to see where we can go with, kind of the experts on the reporting side of things? We'll do our best to give you guys what you want on the basketball side of things. Again, we're Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 to 8 a.m. Central, 9 Eastern time. Make sure you guys give us a follow. We've got about 15 more minutes here on the show, and the preseason poll for ACC basketball has been out for a while now, so I'm not breaking any news here. It came out about 2 weeks ago. Duke, Louisville, North Carolina, NC State, Virginia, SMU, Clemson, Miami, Syracuse, Notre Dame, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Pitt, Florida State, Cal, Stanford, Boston College. In that order, scrimmages and exhibitions are heating up now for ACC basketball. So that's something to watch as now the season is really, really approaching, about a week away or so from that season getting underway for pretty much all schools. So again, we're going to be heating things up on the basketball side of things, but let's end with just some conversation around, what some of these ACC programs need to do to elevate their programs in the right direction. I want to highlight a trio that really stands out to me from where they're at right now in ACC play and in the overall landscape of college football, because there's a couple of programs in the ACC that you can very clearly circle and say they are, I would say, kind of holding the league back right now with the resources they have, yet not being able to be at full go. And I think it's important for this league to have a group of schools that are pushing in the right direction and finding their footing and being able to carry their own weight. When you look at the bottom of the ACC, just from an overall win-loss perspective, you've got your North Carolina, you've got your Florida State, you've got your Boston College. Those are the 2 lost teams and below. Or Florida State has three wins on the year, but of course they're a complete mess in their own right. That's not from an investment standpoint, but the ones that need to find a way to push the right buttons in this coaching carousel, got to be Virginia Tech, got to be NC State for me. Those are the 2 that are so frustrating, I think, to watch be at the level that they're at. And NC State is juiced with a 4-4 record. They could end up going bowling still if they have a good finish to the regular season. But man, 1-3 in ACC play right now is really disappointing if you're a Wolfpack fan. They obviously got the win at Wake Forest, so they did something right to a team that was still adjusting and learning and all of those things, early in the tenure. And of course, the Virginia game that doesn't count. But man, they've just completely fallen apart as of late. It's been really disappointing to watch this one unfold, and it's not going to be any easier when they've got to play Georgia Tech, then Miami, then Florida State, and North Carolina. So their finish of the season is doable. That could get them to bowl eligibility. But if they don't, you look back at the schedule that they played, and Virginia Tech and Duke, those are types of games that NC State should be winning, and not taking away from the job that Manny Diaz and Duke are doing, because they're spending, they're investing, they're doing all of those things. But NC State is in a really nice spot from a talent-rich area perspective. That those Carolinas, they produce talent. You can dip down to Georgia. You can dip down to Florida. You can do those things. Basically, don't really go too far north for talent. You can dip into Virginia and things like that. But, NC State has such a great environment. It has such a solid, athletic history with the basketball team. There's no reason this team should be cellar dwelling in the ACC standings and sitting there with one win over its first 4 ACC games this year. So they really have to maybe hit the reset button here, go out, make a unique hire. And on the flip side of that, you have Virginia Tech, whose job is open, and they are looking outside the box. You heard Pete Nakos mention James Madison head coach Bob Chesney. Like, that would be, that you're looking for the next Curt Cignetti, although Bob is a lot younger over there at James Madison. And if he took the job, it would have a different feel to it than other than just grabbing, Curt Cignetti, older guy and well-traveled and things like that. But Virginia Tech is kind of thinking outside the box. They're working on, would James Franklin fit here? Would, Bob Chesney be a good option? They're involved with John Summerall, I'm sure, trying to find those right little spots to invest and try to hit a home run higher, because this pair of ACC schools that I'm talking about right now, and of course Dave Doeren is not out the door yet, but they have a chance with their money to go out and hire a coach who is the right type of a fit, has enough resources to succeed, and then you kind of see how it plays out. North Carolina made its bed. We've seen the money that they're spending. They're investing. Florida State has spent tons and tons and tons of money. Boston College is the other one that is over in the league. They're not investing right now. They're not giving the tools Bill O'Brien needs to succeed. Bill O'Brien has made some poor choices on that side of it as well. But when you look at the schools that are open right now and are investing, you've got Virginia Tech and you've got Stanford. Stanford's trying to get on the right track there. Their hire is going to be interesting to see who they end up getting because of the academic piece to it. You have a unique structure there with Andrew Luck. So that is kind of a standalone. The two that are very normal types of jobs that right now, for the most part, have underachieved, Virginia Tech is open. NC State is not. If one of those programs hits the right button and gets that right head coach in there, they can be on the right track relatively quickly, because you have fan support. You have stadiums that are solid and enjoyable for people to go to. I mean, who doesn't circle a game, even though it's hard to get to, at Virginia Tech? That's just what you want to see. You want to see Enter Sandman. You want to see that environment, and kids want to play for that. Like, I think they have some of the best uniforms in college football, the most recognizable. It's just an awesome scene there. And so whoever gets that job, it needs to be a different hire than they've kind of gone in the past. They've hired some guys that have not necessarily been builders. They've hired some guys that very quickly, once they got to the power conference level at the ACC, you could tell, oh man, this is not it. This is not going to work. And they've paid for it. And at the same time, they've not been investing. Now they're investing. They've got the tools to kind of figure things out here. They have to make the right hire. It's easier said than done. But I do feel like that Virginia Tech job in particular is the one that, if it got right, it would really help the league as a whole, because They have so much history. They were one of those lunch pail best teams in the country kind of programs that everybody knew about. I mean, I grew up watching Frank Beamer's teams be some of the best in the country, and they've fallen on really tough times with the new era of college football and college athletics. Now they have a time where they're investing. They have some of the tools to succeed. They really have to get this hire right. They've had a lot of time to do it. And if they did go internally and went with Philip Montgomery, I wouldn't hate that hire. He's been a head coach. He's got a good mindset about him, but you need to also then maybe pair that with a structure that includes a true GM, kind of run the program like a NFL type of organization, because Philip Montgomery is a lot about X's and O's, and I think he would do a good job there. But you also need to have a little bit of a direction recruiting wise where it's clear, somebody who maybe has ties to the university there to make it happen, because it is unique. You can't approach it the same way as everywhere else, but Virginia Tech does have the ability to put things together for these coaches and make it happen. So Virginia Tech steps up. That would be good for the league. NC State is the other one that really needs to step up. And I can't even talk about North Carolina and Florida State because they're just such a mess right now that if they would need to move on, most likely, from those coaches to kind of hit a reset and see what you can do. But it's also a really unique situation in both cases where I don't know if that's the answer. I don't know if that's the right move right now at this very time for those two programs. So Virginia Tech, though, NC State, you feel like they have opportunities this cycle that if they can get ahead of this and really nail it, that can be a game changer for the ACC, because the ACC is better when those two programs are clicking. What's next this week? We've got our Wednesday show. We've got our Thursday show. We'll preview. We'll do power rankings. We'll give out game picks. I don't think we did half bad last week in Pick'em. We lost out kind of on some of the bigger spreads like the Miami and the Georgia Tech game. So basically the top of the league, those two, we weren't in a good situation there. But it's another week. It's a new week. And we'll see what we can do. Actually had a really good week. I got 8 of 12 picks right. Obviously SMU missed, but I got UNC right. Then so didn't do too hot in the ACC, but overall went 8 of 12 in Pick'em last week as far as covers. So make sure you guys are following us on All Access AM. We will be back on Wednesday and Thursday, 7 to 8 a.m. Central Time, to preview the rest of the Week 10 slate of college football. As November's here, Halloween is Friday. Something spooky could happen this weekend in ACC play because last week nothing really happened. But the Halloween night at Syracuse for North Carolina, man, it would really be spooky if Bill Belichick got his first ACC win up there in the Carrier Dome over Fran Brown. And we'll be sure to preview that one. We'll get somebody on to talk about that Friday night game. But look, please hit the subscribe button to our YouTube channel, All Access AM. Of course, want to send one last reminder to go to securitynational.bank.com to get all the rundown on your personal wealth journey, your business banking journey, how Security National Bank can help you build your wealth and succeed in life. Please go to securitynational.bank for more information on what they can do for you in the personal and business banking side of things. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of All Access AM. We will be back Wednesday, 7 to 8 a.m. Central Time, breaking down more of the ACC and previewing Week 10 around the league. So hit us in the comments with suggestions on basketball season, what you guys want to see, and hit that subscribe button for us to All Access AM on YouTube. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Hope you guys have a great week. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for watching All Access AM.